There's no way you can keep playing like that, yo.
nearly 60% of beverages sold contain zero sugar.
More choices,
Less sugar.
BalanceUS.org.
Shazam!
I just threw a truck at a dragon.
Up next, a nursing student disappears,
It's really a mystery as to where she's vanished.
and her ex-boyfriend is the prime suspect.
I'm telling the police, I'd really like for you to take a look at him.
But without a body, is there even a case?
You don't have a crime yet. Then what's the crime?
The only real clue is a set of keys. The trick for investigators is finding out which door they might open. Singer, and many thought she had the talent to make it.
She loved to sing, and she would practice her songs. She tried out for American Idol and sat outside, I think, for a day, and she was devastated when she didn't make the first cut.
Realizing how difficult it was to make it in the entertainment business, at the age of 24, Tamika decided to enter nursing school. When classes ended and summertime came, Tamika finally had some free time.
She didn't have class to report to. She didn't have a job to go to every morning. She was very spontaneous. She was the type of person to get in her car and kind of go.
And that's what everyone thought had happened when they couldn't get in touch with her. But after 2 weeks passed, her family became alarmed.
I called police and said that there's clearly something wrong. I can't locate my niece. She's not returning anyone's phone calls.
Tamika was 24 years old, and it's perfectly acceptable for someone who doesn't want to call someone to not call them.
Police in Spartanburg, South Carolina, went to Tamika's house. Her car was gone, and the doors were locked, but they gained access through an open window. In the back room, police found Tamika's dog and a litter of puppies, all on the verge of starvation.
I remember the detective coming and telling me that she loved animals and she would not have left her animals.
There were no signs of violence and no indication where she'd gone. Police issued a Be on the Lookout bulletin for Tamika's car, a 1991 black Honda.
It could have been a traffic accident off the side of a road, and which would still be a tragedy, but it would be a criminal tragedy.
Family and friends put up missing person flyers all over town.
As a mother, it's very difficult not knowing where my daughter is or hoping that and thinking that she's okay and safe.
Police checked Tamika's cell phone and credit card records, and there had been no activity during the time she'd been missing. Tamika's ex-boyfriend, Terrence Moss, went to police and offered his assistance. He had been living with Tamika until 3 months earlier when they broke up.
There was an incident at her house where she accused him of hitting her and striking her.
However many flares can go off in a law enforcement officer's mind, that's how many would have gone off with Terrence Moss.
Moss said he knew nothing about Tamika's disappearance, although he admitted the assault, claiming it was a one-time incident.
I punched her. I actually punched her. And I fell down on my knees and I started praying. And I was like, it's just so many demons in here that, you know, we're becoming physical with each other now that we just need to separate.
Because of that incident, Tamika had filed an assault charge against Moss, and she disappeared just 2 weeks before she was to appear in court.
She was a victim of domestic violence. She's supposed to go to court and testify against this guy.
As we kept pressuring and pushing and repeating questions to him, he became agitated and finally just shut down from us and refused to talk to us completely.
Terrence Moss is prime suspect number one.
1 month had passed since Tamika Houston disappeared, and police were no closer to finding her.
She could still be alive, we don't know. There was still kind of like an undercurrent of a sense of hope.
Then, a tenant in a nearby apartment complex called police with a tip.
Flyers were distributed all over Spartanburg. Tamika Houston's face became very familiar to people in this area. A woman saw the flyer and saw the description picture of the car on there and said, you know, this looks like a car that's parked behind Barksdale Apartments.
And she was correct. It was Tamika's car, parked just 4 miles from Tamika's home.
Cars are easy to track with respect to license tags and VIN numbers. And in many instances, cars are more distinctive in some ways than people are.
No one living in the apartment saw anyone driving the car or parking it. Inside, police found no forensic evidence, no blood, and no sign of a struggle. The only clue was a partial fingerprint, which didn't match Tamika's ex-boyfriend Terrence Moss or anyone in the National Fingerprint Database.
The car wasn't the treasure trove I'm sure police had hoped for.
But investigators did find a set of keys on the passenger's side floor.
You could see that one looked like an automobile key and one looked like a house key.
None of the keys worked in Tamika's car.
So we thought maybe those were the keys to Tamika's house.
But they didn't work there either.
The keys don't belong to Tamika Houston, so maybe they belong to the person responsible for her disappearance.
The keys were dusted for fingerprints, but none were found. Then investigators noticed a code on one of the keys.
It had a special stamp on it. It was stamped with AA14. Nothing that indicates who cut the key, who put the stamp on it. It was just a key with a stamp.
Investigators took the key to all the locksmiths in the area. Miraculously, one of them was able to identify it.
He said, "I can tell you who I made it for." So he pulls his records out, and after looking through his records for a while, he finds who that code was, and that was for Fremont School Apartments.
That's a great break. It's a great break. It is amazing how much luck the hard workers have. It's amazing.
Fremont School Apartments is once a local elementary school, and the government converted it into some public housing.
Detectives tried the key in each of the 46 apartments. Strangely, it didn't open any of them, but it did open a storage area door.
It fit a door in the basement, and the door that it fit in the basement, when it opened up, that was an apartment that was closed. It had been taken offline because of flood issues.
Investigators asked forensic technicians to look for possible evidence inside that room.
We ended up seizing all the evidence out of that offline apartment, and it was a tremendous amount, and we processed it for any kind of DNA or anything for Tamika, and it ended up being a dead end also.
No one in the apartment complex had seen a woman matching Tamika's description.
There was a lot, I think, false hope during that time.
Then the apartment manager offered a possible explanation. When a tenant is evicted, maintenance often removes the entire doorknob from the evicted tenant's apartment door and replaces it with a doorknob from another apartment.
So that the person who moved out can't come back later with a copied key and enter that apartment again.
Unfortunately, they didn't keep good records of which doorknobs were swapped, meaning the doorknob from the basement unit could have come from any apartment in the complex. Investigators were convinced that the apartment key found in Tamika Houston's car held the secret to her disappearance. But it didn't open any of the apartment doors in the Fremont School Apartments, only a basement storage area. So investigators asked for a list of tenants, including those who'd been evicted. And they showed that list to Tamika's friends and relatives.
You get to a point where you've run out of more traditional leads, so you're going to pursue it even if it's a somewhat unusual lead.
Her best friend mentioned there's this guy named Chris that she started seeing around the time of her disappearance.
There was only one person named Chris on the tenant list, Christopher Hampton. He'd been evicted from the Fremont Apartments 1 month after Tamika disappeared. He also had a police record. He served 4 years in prison for bank robbery. investigators located Chris Hampton. He was in prison, serving a 30-day sentence for a parole violation, but records showed he was free at the time of Tamika's disappearance. When questioned, Hampton said he knew Tamika, but he didn't know where she was.
She said, I want to go to bike week.
She said who she was going with?
No, she didn't say. She said she was going.
Did you see her at any point after that?
Nah, last time I seen her.
Hampton's prints did not match the partial print found in Tamika's car. But investigators got a huge break when Hampton's former girlfriend, the mother of his 2 young children, called police. She said Hampton mailed her his wallet for safekeeping since he wasn't permitted to keep it in prison.
She says, I've got his wallet if y'all want to come look at it.
She told police she called because she'd been following news stories about Tamika Houston's disappearance and was well aware that Hampton had been living in the Fremont apartments. She also said there was a tiny speck of blood on the wallet.
It was very important. If it wasn't for that media coverage there, that young lady may have never came forward.
I examined the photograph, found the speck of potential blood, took it through the preliminary testing for blood, and it passed. It was positive.
But whose blood was it? To find out, investigators needed DNA from Tamika's family.
In this case, we had the mother and the father, so you can quickly ascertain whether or not this unknown sample could have originated from an offspring from those 2 parents.
The DNA test left no doubt. The blood was Tamika's. When confronted with this evidence, Hampton again denied any involvement.
Whatever happened to Tamika happened right there in your apartment.
Yeah, I don't believe that. How you know that blood? It could be anybody's blood.
No, it can't be anybody's blood. How long you think we've been doing this? You don't know that we can tell one person's blood from another blood?
No.
You ever heard of DNA?
Yeah.
But prosecuting a case without a body is never easy.
Her body is not turned up. You've got pets abused, no contact with your family, and an injury that led to a loss of blood, and your car has been abandoned. That's pretty good circumstantial evidence that something bad happened to you. But you still got murder, manslaughter, involuntary, self-defense, accident. What do you have to fill in any of those 5 scenarios right now?
14 months after Tamika Houston's disappearance, her ex-boyfriend, Terrence Moss, was no longer considered a suspect. That's because police found Tamika's blood in a wallet belonging to Chris Hampton, a man who Tamika had been dating at the time of her disappearance. Hampton once lived in apartment 215 of the Fremont School apartments, but more than a year had passed, and another family was now living there. Then, a young woman called police to say she was inside apartment 215 with Chris Hampton around the time of Tamika's disappearance. And she'd seen something suspicious.
There was a large brownish-red stain on the floor in the bedroom, and that the dresser was pulled over in front of the closet door, which was odd.
Entering apartment 215, Fremont Apartments. There's the entrance door, the living room.
Investigators obtained a search warrant and found evidence of a cleanup in the master bedroom, just as she described.
Whenever law enforcement sees bleach, they think clean up crime scene, clean up blood, so you start peeling away the carpet.
And when we pulled the carpet up, there was a large reddish-brown stain that was on the back of the carpet and into the padding on the floor.
This stain tested positive for human blood, and they found more blood elsewhere in the apartment.
Not only was there blood in the bedroom, there was blood in the closet, which was, in some instances, even more interesting. How would a blood stain get inside a closet?
Analysts sprayed luminol in every room of the apartment and found even more blood.
You just know that this is where something really bad and really violent happened. You immediately know that she was moved from here and taken into the closet and laid in the closet, because the one in the closet's the perfect size of a head.
With the tests that are in use today throughout the world, we have a sex-determining link. So we knew it was a female. We had a full profile. We had all 13 locations that we look at.
DNA testing confirmed the blood was Tamika's.
It just took all the life out of me, because I knew that hey, my daughter was in an apartment and there was enough blood that my daughter could have died.
The blood evidence and information provided by the young woman gave investigators a picture of what happened.
He sticks her in a closet and goes and gets a girl and has sex with her and enjoys a meal, and then has to figure out, how am I going to get this body out of my apartment?
When investigators confronted Chris Hampton, he initially had nothing to say. But he must have realized the weight of the evidence against him, because he made police an offer.
He stands up and he says, "Let's go." We said, "Where are we going? Are we going to the jail? Or are you going to show us where she's at?" He says, "I'll show you where she's at."
Hampton led investigators to a wooded area about 12 miles away and pointed to the exact spot where he buried Tamika's body. He said he was sure because he left a marker.
He just said that he made a cross out of sticks that he found laying around on the ground and just laid them out on the ground in a cross pattern.
In a shallow grave, investigators found a woman's remains. Dental records confirmed it was Tamika Houston.
It was really a difficult time for our entire family, and to see my sister suffer so much. You never really recover fully from losing someone in that way.
It's like somebody taking a pitchfork that's burning and sticking it to your chest, the side your heart is on. There's no other way to describe this pain.
Hampton told police that Tamika stopped by his apartment while he was ironing his clothes.
I got plans. I'm going out. Plans with who?
They got into an argument. Hampton said it was because he was seeing other women. Hampton admitted he lost his temper and struck her in the head with his iron. A tiny drop of blood landed on the inside of his wallet. Blood also dripped onto the carpet. The evidence shows Hampton wrapped Tamika's body in the bed sheets and put it in the closet. Then he pulled his chest of drawers in front of the closet door. Hampton brought another woman back to his apartment who saw the blood stain on the floor. The next day, Hampton used a friend's car to transport Tamika's body to the wooded area where he buried her in a shallow grave. Hampton rented a carpet cleaner and removed as much blood as he could, although he couldn't remove everything. Large amounts of DNA remained. Later, when he abandoned Tamika's car in a nearby apartment complex, he inadvertently dropped his own keys on the passenger side floor. A set of keys with a locksmith stamp that led straight to his front door.
If we had not found out where that key went, we would probably still be looking for Tamika.
I imagine that the police officer wanted to probably kiss this locksmith, if not do more than that, when he said that, yeah, I recognize this key.
At first, Hampton claimed it was an accident.
I'm not telling you that he premeditated it. I'm telling you that he struck a blow with malice that resulted in her death. And if you doubt for 1 second whether or not that's true, look at what he did after it happened.
Chris Hampton changed his mind on the first day of his trial.
Are you guilty of the crime of murder?
Yes, sir.
Christopher Hampton pled guilty the morning we were set to draw the jury. And I was surprised that he pled guilty. We were ready, had opening statement. I was going to try the case with another prosecutor in my office. We were ready.
As a result, Hampton was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole.
He came as close to getting away with it as AA-14 stamped on a key. He came close to it. The morals of the story are you don't know what the most important piece of evidence is going to be until after the trial's over. In this case, it happened to be a key which led you to a crime scene.
Purdue University Global. Apply now at purdueglobal.edu.
Up next, the murder of a funeral director.
911, what's the emergency? Man, my freaking bed has been shot.
It just didn't make sense. It didn't ring clear at all.
Cell phone records provided some important evidence.
There was a whole lot more to this story than what was originally.
Has killed Mrs. Jessica Neal.
Teenager murdered on the grounds of an elementary school.
She did absolutely nothing wrong.
Then another woman is viciously stabbed.
This guy could be a serial killer.
The attacker, in his haste to get away, leaves a vital piece of evidence.
In the laboratory, we call it Cinderella evidence.
DNA connects the two assaults.
But you need more than DNA. You need a name.
Then another deadly attack linked to the same man. It's up to homicide detective Molly Dahl to track down this brutal killer before he strikes again.
He's wanting to murder women.
Nobody should die that way.
I've never seen anything that horrific.
One of the duties of a pathologist is to determine the cause of death.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required. Download Veely now.
Across the bay from San Francisco lies the city of San Leandro, California. A city that has grown increasingly popular among young families for its small-town feel and seaside setting. It's the evening of November 5th. A storm sweeps in, bringing torrential rain. At 8:30 p.m., Patrol Officer Jim Stark is dispatched to Jefferson Elementary School. An alarm that picks up both movement and sound has been triggered by a strange banging coming from the building.
I responded. Went and checked it out, walked the perimeter, checked the doors, make sure it was all secure, which it was. I decided to walk the school grounds itself, just to make sure that we weren't missing something. When I got to the end of the buildings, I could see an umbrella that was upside down. It was open, it was collecting rain. As I rounded around the building, at that point I could see some clothing.
Scattered across the yard, a pair of shoes and a jacket, and an ominous trail to what he is about to discover.
So I continued around the building. When I got to the corner of the building, I could hear a little banging sound. It wasn't real hard pounding, it was just very light, but something that was methodical. So I peeked around the corner, and that's when I saw the victim.
A young woman lying beside the school wall.
With her left hand, she was hitting the wall of the building, the exterior wall. She had been shot in the head.
Officer Stark calls for an ambulance and police backup.
As soon as I got off the radio, my raincoat went off, and I put it around, on top of her to cover her.
J.R.R. Tolkien, George R.R. Martin, Mark Twain, writer of Tom Sawyer, what did they have in common? They all got paid to write words. However, they had to get paid to write really good words. They had to write iconic books that changed society in different ways. You probably don't want to do that, and you're probably not good enough to do it anyways, which is a good thing. You don't have to be that good at writing to get paid well to do it. If you want to know how to write words and get paid for it, the easiest way to do it is to get paid to write emails for other companies. So if you've ever been interested in living a writer's lifestyle, being able to wake up whenever you want, write some words, and then go about your day, travel, do whatever the you want.
I reached down, grabbed her hand, just to let her know, hey, help is coming.
Paramedics rush the victim to emergency. Back at the crime scene, investigators, including lead detective Autry James, start the search for evidence.
If you'd asked me the day before, had I seen everything, I would have told you absolutely. There's nothing that's going to surprise me or shock me at this point. But I got to tell you, I was shocked. I was shocked at the level of violence involved.
Detective Rick DaCosta is concerned the storm is washing away evidence.
Any sort of shoe print, footprint would more than likely have been either destroyed or would have been very difficult to identify at a later time. One of our folks that collects evidence, they discovered a shell casing that was near where the umbrella was. So our assumption was that was where she was shot. And she had been dragged a short distance.
Using school ID, police identify the victim as 15-year-old Evelina LeBlanc. They immediately locate her mother.
I asked him what had happened, and he says, well, it wasn't anything Evelina did. He said, I think she probably was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I said, well, what do you mean? So he said, well, Evelina's been shot.
Evelina was the apple of her mother's eye.
She's like my best friend. Evelina was a very bubbly, bright, loving, outgoing, intelligent young woman. She was a good student. The type of person, if you met her, you'd never forget her.
By the time Arlene arrives at the hospital, Evelina's on life support.
And he told me that she had put up a struggle because she had had her nails done and 2 of the nails had come off. But they had cleaned her and she looked like she was just asleep. So the doctor came in and he told me that Evelina was not gonna make it.
The next morning, with her mother at her bedside, Evelina is taken off life support. The case is now a homicide. Investigators get to work, searching for her killer.
Initially, we didn't know if this was someone who knew Evelina, who was angry with her. We had no idea what the motive was. We didn't know if it was a jilted boyfriend.
Police found a DNA sample on Evelina they believe is from the killer. They run it through the national database, but there's no match.
Somebody who has this type of disregard for human life more than likely isn't going to just do it once. Our hopes were that at some point, this person's DNA would be uploaded into a database and we would get some sort of hit on this person.
Until then, they must rely on more traditional police work to find their killer.
What we tried to do is to map out what her day was. From the very beginning when she woke up to the point when she was attacked. What we learned is that Evelina had been at one of the local high school's football games that day.
Evelina decided she was going to leave the game early. She just couldn't deal with the rain and the cold, so she left her friends and headed back using public transportation.
We managed to find out which bus she was on, and from there we were able to contact some individuals who were on the bus, and one of them was a bus driver.
The driver recalls that after Evelina boarded, a young man started calling out to her.
After a short period of time, the young lady got up, walked towards the back of the bus where this young man was, and they initiated a conversation.
According to the driver, the two step off the bus together at approximately 6:30 p.m.
And it looked as though to her that they were preparing to cross the street.
Evelina gets off the bus only 5 blocks from where she's murdered.
That was the last time that anyone recalls seeing her alive.
Could this young man, a teenager himself, be Evelina's killer? Or can he help lead police to the person who is? 15-year-old Evelina LeBlanc was brutally murdered in an elementary schoolyard. As police investigate the gruesome crime, a bus driver provides vital information. She saw Evelina step off the bus with a young man only 2 hours before the murder.
That individual who got off the bus with Evelina was really the focus of our investigation.
Police release a composite drawing based on the bus driver's description of the teenager seen with Evelina.
A light-skinned African-American male, probably 15 to 17 years old, with a thin build and cornrow-style haircut.
Officers blanket San Leandro with flyers in the hope witnesses will come forward. Then they begin the arduous process of trying to identify potential suspects at Evelina's high school.
We talked to so many kids, so many adults that knew Evelina, just trying to establish who could be this angry with her, who could have this sort of venom inside of them.
The goal was that every contact she made, we wanted to speak with that person who she made that contact with, because they either were a suspect or someone who was going to lead us to a suspect.
Since police have DNA from Evelina's attacker, they hope to find him by matching his genetic profile to someone she knew.
There were actually search warrants written for the collection of DNA evidence from some males in the area, some students, and some non-students.
With the use of DNA, we were able to exclude people who were within her circle that necessarily didn't have an alibi.
Unfortunately, we never got a match.
In addition to not finding a DNA link, no one recognizes the composite.
We were never able to identify who the individual was that got off the bus with Evelina.
The frustration level was very high for our agency because this was such a devastating crime.
The unsolved crime is also devastating for Evelina's mother.
I was very angry. I wanted him captured. I wanted the person captured that, had taken her life.
Despite investigators' best efforts, it seems Evelina's savage killer will escape justice.
As some of these cases go, unfortunately, the weeks turn into months, the months turn into years, and before you know it, it becomes a cold case.
Flash forward 13 years. The cold case murder of Evelina LeBlanc is about to heat up, but in another state. It's a cool March night in Portland, Oregon. 35-year-old Elena Thompson is walking home.
I was coming from playing a video poker, ran into this guy, and he was coming from around a truck, crossed the street.
As the man approaches her, he introduces himself, but she can barely understand his name. It sounds like Nani or Naji.
He asked me, was I from the islands? I told him I wasn't from the island. And his temper went sky high, so I lied and said, okay, yeah, I'm from the islands. I was just playing with you, so he came back down to his normal self.
There's something off with this strange man.
I kind of got away from him and ran across the bridge, and I looked back and I didn't see him anymore. But I still thought and felt somebody was following me. He pops up on a blue bike, and I said, you need to stop following me. I lied to him and told him the police is following me. I just got into it at a bar, and he said, "No, bitch, I'm following you." He jumps off his bike. We fight. He pulls out something out of his pocket. At that time, I didn't know what it was, but I heard a click. This was a Fisher knife. He stabbed me in my arm, the top of my head, and he kept saying his God told him to. I felt blood, warm blood. It was just like coming down my face. That one to the head was like life-threatening.
As the attacker goes to stab her again, he's interrupted.
And it's like this guy came down with a skateboard, put his skateboard down in the middle of the street, rushes over. This guy who stabs me runs and gets his bike and runs off.
Elena's savior races to get her help.
Time I got to the hospital, through the doors, they said I had 5 more minutes to live. I lost a lot of blood. After I woke up, I seen the pictures they took, and one of the pictures really scared me because my eyes was taped down like I was in a morgue.
When police arrive at the scene of the stabbing, they find a vital piece of evidence. Elena's vicious attacker lost his shoe.
If you have a side gig and need to file your taxes, visit freetaxusa.com. With us, your federal return is always free, and your state return is only $14.99. We've got you covered. And there's absolutely no fee if you need to include a 1099 tax form. We help you find all the business write-offs you deserve, and IRS e-filing is included. Don't pay more than $100 to file your small business taxes. Switch to freetaxusa.com and save.
This mistake is costing Amazon Prime shoppers big. Are you still using Prime? Because at this point, it's the dinosaur of online shopping. What if I told you there's a new exciting alternative? I'm going to show you one simple trick that'll save you a lot of money when shopping online.
Watch this. I can show you how to get the sweetest deals online when you shop from major retailers like Amazon and Target. You can drop prices automatically. I can show you how, but I can't do it for you. People are saving real money doing this, $160 million in the last year. Across thousands of different retailers, you'll immediately see this. See what I mean? You'll see better prices you had no idea existed. And you don't even need to ask. They just show up automatically. Download this free tool that'll give you access to the deals like the one I just showed you.
Just click, done.
That's it. Simple. It takes all of 10 seconds. No need to enter any personal information, no technical mumbo jumbo. It's that easy.
What are you waiting for? It takes less than 30 seconds to start saving, and this is all 100% free.
The shoe is sent to forensic scientist Janelle Scott at the Oregon State Crime Lab.
Believe it or not, shoes are left behind at the scene of crime quite a bit. In fact, in the laboratory, we call it Cinderella evidence.
But shoes aren't a great source of DNA.
If you think of a shoe, it has very little direct contact with the skin itself. So for example, I would expect a good profile from the back of your shirt that rubs on your neck. Shoes generally are separated from your skin by socks.
It's a long shot, but with no other evidence left at the scene, police hope DNA will identify this violent criminal. And there's good news, sort of.
So we swabbed the shoe and we obtained a partial profile from it, which means there wasn't a lot of DNA there, but it was enough information to search it against our database.
Elena Thompson was savagely stabbed as she walked home late one March night in Portland. She survives, but the attack leaves her terrified.
I was scared because they haven't caught up with him. I was scared to go places. You know, I don't like people sitting behind me. I don't like crowds. I don't go shopping anymore unless I'm with my brother. He just changed me.
When her attacker fled, a vital piece of evidence was left behind, his shoe. And even though shoes aren't usually a good source of DNA, forensic scientist Janelle Scott manages to extract some.
We got a partial profile because there wasn't a lot of DNA left behind. That partial profile was added to the database.
Even more remarkable, the DNA found on the shoe matches DNA from another crime scene altogether.
We found out that that profile matched to a profile left behind at a homicide from 1994 in California.
She has just linked two vicious crimes: the unsolved murder of high school student Evelina LeBlanc and the attempted murder of Portland resident Elena Thompson.
That the DNA profiles were from the same person was astonishing.
San Leandro detective Rick DaCosta is contacted about the match.
My heart started beating faster. My first thought was, I can't wait to let Arlene know that we may one day solve this case.
I just didn't give up hope. I just kept praying and saying, you know, eventually the person will be caught.
Although DNA has linked these sadistic crimes, that's all it can do.
So your DNA profile is a series of numbers, but they don't tell us anything about you, except if you're male or female.
DNA won't tell investigators who the person is.
It doesn't tell us their name, their height, any physical characteristics, or any sort of ethnic background. So science had done all it can do, and it was now up to Portland police to put a name with these crimes.
It falls to homicide detective Molly Dahl to find the killer connected to these unidentified DNA samples.
I had been in homicide less than 6 months, and yeah, I felt the pressure. You don't just go through life and do one violent crime. This is definitely somebody that was prone to do it again.
She believes he's committed more crimes since these attacks.
It fits the profile of someone that's doing this. There's no reason for him not to stop doing it because he's been getting away with it for so many years.
She examines the DNA reports, but it's what she does next that really hooks her.
When I started pulling up pictures of Evelina LeBlanc, that gave me a face that just made me think of one word: innocence. And after I saw Evelina's face, it wasn't just some innocuous crime lab report.
Now Dahl wants to meet with Elena Thompson, the one person to have seen the killer face to face.
I need to get out of her the small details that didn't perhaps make it into a police report from the original interview.
They begin with the attacker's appearance.
She said he was a male black, early 20s, medium build, around 5'8".
Dark, slanted eyes, very short hair.
A description Dahl believes matches the composite sketch of the last person seen with Evelina LeBlanc. Dahl continues to question her witness.
And Elena has a wonderful memory of that night, even though she should clearly be traumatized and may have blocked out some.
Elena is able to provide a new lead about her attacker. She recalls him introducing himself.
She wanted to think that this guy called himself Naji or Nani, something similar, something foreign sounding.
At the hospital, I couldn't remember nothing but nah. I said, nah, something. I told the officers, nah, something.
Elena asks her friends for help. She describes her attacker to them in hopes they can identify him.
They said that's not G. And he hangs downtown.
I wanted to run back to my desk, and I wanted to start researching this name, Najee. I had a name. There can't be a lot of Najees running around Portland, so I'm thinking, I'm golden right now. I can do this.
Portland investigators are hunting for a vicious criminal who murdered Evelina LeBlanc and tried to kill Elena Thompson.
I'm blessed to see another day. But I'm still afraid.
Elena knew that night that this guy was going to kill her.
DNA from the two attacks is matched to the same man.
The two profiles were linked together, but we still didn't have a name to go with them.
Elena, with help from friends, provides two possible names for her attacker.
She told me his name was Najee or Nani.
Elena's friend was being released from prison when she met a man with that name.
And one of her girlfriends said, I know the Najee you're talking about. He looks the same as you describe him. I was being transported to be released on the jail bus with Najee.
Detective Dahl requests the log from the prison transport bus.
I came up with a short list of about 3 possibles, 3 black males that had some similar physical characteristics. And when I looked at their names, there was no Najee. There was nothing similar, not even an N name.
But Dahl is determined to identify the killer. She digs into these 3 men's police records.
The second guy, ordinary sounding name, but when you looked at his aliases and his monikers, there he was. I found Najee. And I am thinking, this is our guy.
Actually, it felt good because they had an idea of who they was going to go get, who they was looking for. One part of me felt relieved, and one part of me was still scared because they hadn't actually got him.
Dahl just needs the crime lab to confirm Najee's DNA matches the genetic profile found at the crime scenes.
To have somebody to compare the crimes to, a name, to see if this was the person, was exciting.
Dahl also puts together a photo lineup with Najee's picture for her eyewitness.
And I rushed back to Elena.
They sat me at a table, and she had some papers, and she was like, do you know any of these people?
She took a quick scan of all 6 of those photos, and Elena said, he's not in here. And then my heart kind of dropped a little bit and said, hey, junior homicide detective, slow down.
Even though Elena failed to identify Najee as her attacker, Dahl isn't giving up on this suspect.
Witnesses can always be fallible. It's unreliable unless you have a bunch of witnesses saying the same thing.
Besides, she knows it's DNA science that will prove whether Najee attacked these women.
Janelle Scott called me and said, no, this Najee, his DNA did not match any of our cases.
This is the worst news Dahl could receive. She's no closer to stopping her killer, and lives are in danger.
So I was back to square one, and I felt the time crunch. It was bothering me that he was still walking around, doing his evil things, and that really, why wouldn't he attack another woman?
A state away in California, time also haunts Arlene LeBlanc. Even though 13 years have gone by, she hopes one day her daughter's killer will be found.
I would talk to her picture, and then, whenever I felt like she might have been there, I would let her know. We're still working on it, and he will be caught. I'm not going to give up.
I kept a picture of Evelina on my desk, under my blotter on my desk. I mean, it was a constant presence for me.
It hit home with all of us. And we all couldn't imagine the pain, again, that Arlene must have gone through, still goes through to this day.
In Portland, Detective Dahl is also struggling.
I was disappointed. I did find Najee, but Najee did not kill Evelina or attack Eilina.
With no real leads or suspects, she hopes she can track her killer through police records.
So I decided to start with compiling a list of recent arrests within that geographic area in Northeast Portland. So I had a crime analyst help me start capturing a list of subjects of the same physical description that had been arrested in that area.
The amount of information is daunting, but Dahl is determined.
I knew it was a long, long list, and it was going to take some time to make these lists a lot smaller. The probability that he was going to be on one of these lists is good. He's in the small part of the city of Portland. He's walking around. He's still out there.
A young woman is killed, another brutally attacked. Both crimes are linked by DNA to the same man, but with no name attached to this evidence. Police are scrambling to identify him before he attacks again.
I could feel him at the tips of my fingers. He was that tangible.
A bizarre turn right into Dahl's investigation. When a driver spots a woman lying at the side of the road.
I can tell you right now, people are concerned about all these unidentified objects in the sky. Funny thing is that these objects never are in any urban areas. Because I'm sure if it landed in the Bronx, people are concerned about all these unidentified objects in the sky. Funny thing is that these objects never are in any urban areas. Because I'm sure if it landed in the Bronx or was flying over in the Bronx, it'd be in a pawn shop right now. People are concerned about all these unidentified objects in the sky. Funny thing is that these objects
I'm telling you right now, I'm about to go up here with Bobby Valentino. I heard you in town, like, we could meet. Or whatever, but I'm just telling you right now, I ain't in that kind of mood, dog. You know what I'm saying? So, you can run it if you want to.
Is it just my de la soul? What I do ain't make believe. People say I sit and try, but when it comes to being de la, it's just me, myself, and I. It's just me, myself, and I. It's just me, myself, and I. It's just me, myself. Mirror, mirror on the wall, tell me, mirror, what is wrong? Can it be my de la clothes or is it just my de la song? What I do ain't make believe. People say I sit and try, but when it comes to being de la, it's just me, myself, and I. It's just me, myself, and I. It's just me, myself, and I. It's just me, myself. Mirror, mirror on the wall, tell me, mirror, what is wrong? Can it be my de la clothes or is it just my de la song? What I do ain't make believe. People say I sit and try, but when it comes to being de la,
Dialpad AI works for you. It won't make your coffee, but it will.
Oh my God, I don't believe this, man.
Yo, Duff, who they put you with, man?
I got Death Beat, man.
Yo, man, they stuck me and Mace with Death Beat too.
Hello, Prince Paul's the name. You know, the DJ for Sonic and the producer of this particular group. And now off of that and on to the soul. De La, that is. If you take 3 glasses of water and put food coloring in them, you have many different colors, but it's still the same old water. Make the connection, and now, back to our video.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, tell me, mirror, what is wrong? Can it be my De La clothes, or is it just my De La song? What I do ain't make-believe. People say I sit and try, but when it comes to being De La, it's just me, myself, and I. 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 Now you tease my plug one style and my plug one spectacle. You say plug 1 and 2 are hippies, nowhere, not just pure plug bull. Always pushing that we formed an image, there's no need to lie. When it comes to being plug 1, it's just me, myself, and I. 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 Proud, I'm proud of what I am. Poems I speak are plugged too tight. Please, oh please, let plug 2 be himself, not what you read, alright? Right is wrong when hype is written on the soul, they lie that. Style is surely our own thing, not the false disguise of showbiz. They lie soul is from the soul, and in fact I can't deny. Strictly from the Dan called Stucky, and from me, myself, and I. It's just me, myself, and I. It's just me, myself, and I. It's just me, myself, and I. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory for plug 1 and 2. But that glory's been denied by cassids and gooky eyes. People think they diss my person by stating I'm darkly past.
Cámbiate al Google Pixel 7, porque cuando tu teléfono está hecho por Google, todo se vuelve más nítido, más cercano y más mágico, literalmente. Actualízate al Google Pixel 7.
Been all around the world. Been all around the world. Been all around the world. Same song. Been all around the world. Same song.
Yo, we've been all around the world.
Been all around the world. Same song. Been all around the world. Same song.
I came for the party to get naughty, get my rocks on, eat popcorn, watch you move your body to the pop song that I'm singing, ding-a-linging, funky beats ringing, everybody swinging in the place as I kick the J-A-Z-Z-Y style, R&B mixing it with the hip-hop swing beat, champagne in my hand, it won't be long till I'm gone. It's just the same old song.
It's just a freestyle, meanwhile we keep the beat kicking. Sweat dripping, girlies in the limo eating chicken. Oops, don't get the grease on your pantyhose. I love you, Rover, move over, I gotta blow my nose. Sneezing, but still I'm pleasing all of Slimmies, pull out my Jimmy. Time to get busy with a Jenny. If it's good and plenty, don't you know? There I go, there I go, there I go. But I don't go nowhere without my gym hat. What I'm rapping is if she's clapping, then I'm strapping, cause I'm smarter than that. And then, girlie, maybe we can get along. Cutie after cutie, it's just the same old song. It's the same old song, y'all.
Same song.
It's just the same old song.
It's the same song. Money big, the freaky deaky, the squeaky wicky up and down. Well, as a matter of fact, I'll be right back. I gotta take a leaky. So I'm draining entertainers, but I got fame and the bases I touch. Too much for me to try to be naming. Hey yo, you saw me on cable and grin. I busted in and I was going to win. Like Clark Gable back in Oakland, it's the same old song for Sporty Shorty. Same freckles and hat, drinking the same 40.
Hypothetical, political, lyrical, miracle whip. Just like butter, my rhymes are legit, cause I'm the Humpty. Not Humpty Dumpty, but Humpty Hump. Here a hump, there a hump, everywhere I'm Humpty Hump.
Shut up and just listen, not dissing, don't get me wrong. But to me it's just the same old song, so just watch. Cause my name is Shock, I like to rock and you can't stop this. Tupac, go ahead and rock this.
Now I clown around when I hang around with the underground. Girls used to frown, say I'm down when I come around. Gas me, and when they pass me, they used to diss me, harass me. But now they ask me if they can kiss me. Get some fame, people change, wanna live their life high. Same song can't go wrong if I play the nice guy.
Claiming fame must have changed now that we became strong.
I remain still the
Why
same,
too?
cause it's the same song.
Been all around the world, it's the same song.
Same old song, y'all.
Been all around the world, same song.
Shout out, check out, shout out. Shout out, stop. It's just the same old song. You know, quick. Yeah, Humpty Hump in the house, y'all. And you know what? It's the same old song.